Hi there, I'm Lenny, and in this video I'm going to discuss the film Freddy vs. Jason. It was released in 2003. It's rated R and has the runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes. Freddy vs. Jason picks up after the events of the previous film, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, where Freddy's daughter kills Freddy Krueger. And you think your family's messed up, huh? Both Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees are dead and in hell. And with that being the case, with time going by, people have forgotten about Freddy Krueger. It's almost like he doesn't exist, and there's a very good reason for that. The police in the town of Springwood and the parents basically have made the name Freddy Krueger. It's almost like he is Voldemort. No one's allowed to mention the name, no one's allowed to discuss the former history of Springwood. And this is so that the generations going forward don't know anything about it. Everything's being omitted from the records, destroyed. They're doing that so that if you killed the source of it and the power of the name, there's no more power behind it. You eradicate it from history, it never existed. Anyone that recalls the name of Freddy Krueger or recalls having nightmares has been sent to a psych ward where they're given a drug called Hypnosil, which is a dream suppressant, which allows them not to have dreams, nightmares, and therefore, there's no way for Freddy Krueger to enter. Freddy Krueger, always the schemer, always the thinker though, has a plan to get around this loophole. Freddy is going to use Jason in the real world to do what he can't, and that's to strike fear and get his name out there again, get his name spoken, and get power back behind that name. To pull this off, Freddy does what he does best. He enters the sleep of Jason Voorhees, who is sleeping the eternal dirt nap. And he enters Jason's dream as Jason's mother. And Jason's mother suggests that he go to the town of Springwood because there's kids that need to be punished there. There's kids that are having sex and doing drugs. Go to Springwood and teach these kids a lesson. And with that, Jason's heart starts to beat again. He rises from his grave and he takes a little road trip where it's a whole bunch of fresh new victims for him. In the town of Springwood, there's a new family that is residing in the Thompson house. And if that last name sounds familiar, Nancy Thompson was the hero of the original Elm Street films. That's where her family lived, and that's where we first meet Freddy Krueger within that home. Well, Laurie Campbell lives there now with her father. And while her father is out working, she has a small get-together with some friends. Jason Voorhees makes his way to Laurie's house, and into the home, he kills a young man that has just finished having sex with one of Laurie's friends in Laurie's bed. So that's kind of gross. With the remaining witnesses not seeing anyone that has done it and saying that it wasn't them, this begins the circulation and the whisper of the name Freddy Krueger, which is exactly what Freddy wanted. Back at the psych ward, which I mentioned earlier, there are 2 Elm Street kids that are there because the authorities needed them to be out of the way. These 2 individuals are Will Rollins and Mark Davis. And Will Rollins is the former boyfriend of Laurie Campbell. And Will sees on the news within the psych ward the murder has taken place at Laurie's house. So he needs to escape. He needs to get out of the psych ward and tell her what he knows. With that murder, Jason has gotten a taste of committing murder again, and he doesn't want to stop. Why just stop at 1 where you can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or more? Goes to this rave that is taking place in the middle of the cornfield. And here he goes on a killing spree. Now, all of these kids that are at this rave were supposed to be potential victims for Freddy, for him to power up upon these kids so that he can come back 100%. With all these victims being killed off before they can enter a dream state, they aren't fueling Freddy. They're fueling Jason. Freddy wants these victims for himself, and he's not willing to share, even though this was his idea to have Jason begin to commit these murders. Will and Mark escape from the psych ward and they catch up with Laurie and her circle of friends. They decide that what they all need is the drug Hypnosil to make sure that they do not fall asleep. If they don't fall asleep, Freddy can't get them. So they're going to go back to the psych ward which they just escaped from. Once there and on the mission, a stoner kid decides this is the best time to blaze up and get so high that he falls asleep. This causes Freddy to inhabit his body, to take over his body, and Freddy uses the stoner kid to inject a sleeping agent strong enough to tranquilize powerful horses into Jason Voorhees, knocking him unconscious. Now with Freddy being back and getting stronger and Jason out of the picture, there's no one to save the kids from Freddy. Laurie and her group of friends come up with a strategy. They are going to take the unconscious body of Jason Voorhees, put him in a van, and they are going to head to Camp Crystal Lake to get Jason back home. Because sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your best option. Laurie is put into an induced sleep. And the purpose of this is basically like throwing chum in the water. You want the shark to come to you. She wants to bring Freddy to her because she is going to bring Freddy into the real world. While Jason is in this tranquilized state, Freddy decides to take out his anger on him because he is in a sleeping state. And this is where Freddy reigns supreme. So Freddy finds out what terrorizes Jason Voorhees the most, and that is the element of water. The counselors were busy doing other activities such as drugs and sex, so Jason drowned. Jason died, and that is what began the murders at Camp Crystal Lake. His mother began taking revenge on his death at Camp Crystal Lake. But Jason is terrified of water. Freddy uses this to basically mentally beat the crap out of him and torment him and to keep him kind of locked into fear. And Freddy runs off to go attack Laurie, who is now in that induced sleep. Laurie brings Freddy into the real world where the tranquilizers have worn off on Jason Voorhees. And Jason's a little pissed because he doesn't like being taken advantage of, and he's gonna let Freddy know how he feels in a very personal sit down. No, they're not going to sit down. They're going to whoop each other's ass. This is where Jason Voorhees reigns supreme, and this is where the two horror icons go at it in a battle back and forth with each other. As the fight between Jason and Freddy ensues and goes on and on and on, just like the fight between Peter Griffin and the chicken, Laurie and Will, who are the last two survivors, soak the dock that Jason and Freddy are fighting on with gasoline. They also soak the propane tank and light it ablaze, which causes a fiery inferno explosion, which Jason and Freddy get engulfed in. As Laurie and Will come to on the dock, they see the explosion didn't do in Mr. Krueger though, who is walking towards them. And as he's about to strike out at the last two kids, Jason pops out of the water and impales Freddy with his own arm, stabbing him right through the chest. Talk about adding insult to injury. This is the distraction that Laurie needs, and she cuts off Freddy's head. His body falls into the lake along with Jason Voorhees. The very next day after the fire is out, we see the body of Jason Voorhees rise out of the water and begin walking towards land. And he has in his hand the decapitated head of Freddy Krueger, who winks at the camera, and the credits roll. Rating Freddy vs. Jason on the scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, I give it a 6. It's a fun film. It's a film that you get to see two horror icons battle each other and each have their moment to shine. But I wouldn't say that this film is as good as a standalone Nightmare on Elm Street film or a Friday the 13th film. It's fun, but I don't think it's the best film for either franchise. We have now come to the interactive part of this video. If you think the video is worthy of a thumbs up, please feel free to do so. And if you enjoyed the video and you want to see others just like it, all you have to do is hit the YouTube logo, which is going to be down in the corner, and you'll get a notification anytime a new video is uploaded to the channel. As always, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about these things that I'm passionate about. Greatly appreciate that. Please be safe, be careful, and I'll talk to you soon.